stupid ass mic. That's from Goldie's Closet, but we're gonna keep it on there because it's a good windscreen.
So how much time do you have? Because
Whatever
I
you
had
need. Whatever you
okay.
need. Yeah.
There was more fan questions than I expected.
Oh,
So
who knew, right?
yeah, yeah. I think you had about 20 or more fan
Holy
questions.
shit, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
wow. Can't wait to get to that. I'm in a mood, so we'll fire. I'll give you some good TV.
Okay, great. Well, I'll jump right in. I'll jump right into it then if you're ready.
I'm ready to go, sweetheart.
This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today I have a musician slash former TNA Impact Wrestling star
Yeah.
slash podcast host for Vince Russo's network, the lovely Goldilocks. Sorry,
You can
you're
call me
actually making
whatever.
me having a hard time speaking. You're taking my breath away. How are you today?
I am doing absolutely wonderful, and I really appreciate you making time today. And I just was schooling myself on you and all your fanfare and your wiki, and I'm talking to a 6'5" Canadian. I had no idea.
And I just actually listened to your music video all about suicide prevention. That
Aw,
was the main
thank
thing you
you.
wanted to talk about. That's
I'd
a
love to.
very intense music video, by the way.
Bro, it's pretty hardcore, and we shot a music video for it 10 months, almost a year ago, and the story is out. I was in a really toxic deal with some business people, and I always try. I'm looking at all of the wrestling that you've done and the stuff that you've experienced. I'm sure you know all about toxic environments, and I try to learn from that stuff. So one of the things that they were yelling at me about, a year ago is they just said one of the other videos that we did wasn't intense enough, or like who's gonna care or whatever. And we shot a real pretty video for this. It's a Christian release. We're not a Christian band, but I felt like that's where the calling was for this. And we scrapped it all, like the whole budget, everything. And I just said to the band, I said, I think we need to do something just like what I got yelled at for. And they're like, you have 3 seconds to capture people's attention. And I'm like, well, if we're going to capture people's attention, why don't we just go? I was literally lit on the floor of my bedroom, like wanting to die. Like, of course I wouldn't, but like I was just looking at my wrist, Hannibal, and I was like, how, after all of these years of bad record deals, bad this or that, how am I this age and I'm in this same shitstorm that I was when I was a kid? What the happened? And I was like, we're just going to turn this into a suicide prevention video. And then reached out to Bobby Caps from 38 Special, reached out to Chris Henderson from Three Doors Down. They signed up, and they're like, anything you need, anything you want. And like, they went right for the jugular. And then James Storm, who freaking blew me out of the water. Chase Stevens was next to say, whatever you need. No bullshit, just whatever you need. This is something we want to put our time and attention on. And then Alan Funk was on the podcast on Vince Russo's brand. And I was like, we got off and we were bullshitting at the end of it. And I just said, there isn't any way like I could pay your fuel or your travel. None of those mother truckers took any money from me. I palmed them some cash. They turned it away. We went out and had a good night after we wrapped. You want to talk about some badass human beings? Like, I don't think wrestling people get enough credit for just how hardcore the business is, or just how, like, big muscles but big hearts.
Some of them, there are some black-hearted
There's
people.
some, well, there's, yeah, okay, well, we don't need to go there, dude. If you want to cut some promos on that shit, I'm looking at some of the promotions that you were in. I could cut some promos. I could shoot on some people, but bother. Their dicks are small enough as it is. We don't need to decrease that size anymore. But it has some interesting people in this business.
Now, you mentioned Alan Funk. I hadn't heard that name since
Dude,
the dying days of WCW. What is he up to these days?
he's doing his own thing. He's just doing regular stuff. He's, out of it. But boy, did he show up and knock out some bumps. I think some of them might have been a little stiff, but like, I mean, both of those guys, like the camera crew that we had, they were just like, holy shit, could we please have this kind of done? Like, yeah, you're not going to get that every time. Cause you get people showing up that want to help out, but not the level of like your experience, your athleticism, not even that. It's like knowing how to tell a story. And if there was ever a story to be told, it's not just a regular music video, Hannibal. We really wanted to tell all different walks of life, feelings and stories through different vignettes. And, usually on a wrestling show or a video or this or that, you get a few in there. It's a freaking 10-minute long video because I was like, I didn't have enough time to like get everybody's story in there to be impactful, so that who knew the COVID was going to turn around, or like all the social stuff I mean, what a shit storm of people are dropping like flies. And I can't, of course I can say don't do that, but like I understand why people are, Jesus Christ, like how are workers supposed to work, or actresses or actors or anybody that's an independent contract? Some people are just sitting at home on their fat butts, furloughed, making money. They're fine. This has just been a vacation for me. And other people they're starving. It's hard.
That is true. Do you think this was a wise decision, the way that they initially went about it, basically denying people of their ability to work for this whole lockdown?
So I have been asked by my family to keep my big mouth shut. I will just ask a question. How can I ask this? Is it, how can I say it? Fair is the word I'm looking for, or is it equal? If you're going for equality, is it then equal to say you can have somebody die, but you can't have a funeral, you can't work, you can't have arenas, you can't have tours, you can't, but yet you can't be in groups at all, you got to stay home. Is that fair, and is that equal? And then you flip it to saying you can protest in groups of 100 or less, or with no masks, I'm just saying, like right now where it's at, my mind is just like,
there's protesting with thousands and thousands going on.
I'm just saying, like, I've lost my entire income and I've lost my bank account and my savings. Not complaining, no pity party. I'm just saying, like, no offense. I better not even say what I'm going to say. Read between the lines.
Wow, come on, say it.
Yeah, I'm just like, where is my privilege?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a photo that I could show you, which is just a big cloud of smoke, which burnt my heart because it's my neighborhood, because I grew up right where all of this happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, on Lake and Lindale. That's where I was born.
That explains your accent.
And that explains yours, and like I said, my family just said, because I've got relatives on the force, they're like, just keep your mouth shut, keep it shut. I'm like, all right, I will honor that. But like the night that shit hit the fan recently, a few weeks back, I was on the floor sobbing. Like, I mean, we're talking the ugliest cry ever when my dad was sending me photos of our friends' businesses and homes. Like what nobody was gonna even recover and bounce back from the COVID. Now and then it's everywhere. It's the whole world. So I
don't think it's as violent across the world, but the violent protests are mostly in the US, but the COVID affected worldwide.
I don't even know what to say about all that. And then where are we going to be in 6 months to a year when we look back? Did we overshoot it? Did we undershoot it? I guess we'll never know, but like, what's going on? Yeah, it's crazy. Have you been affected? Are you okay?
Well, I have lost about 15 pounds from not being able to lift heavy. The gyms are still closed here.
They are.
I was free. Yeah, they're going to be closed till at least July where I am. So 4 months. But I was a little afraid at first because my regular job closed down. It's still closed actually due to the COVID because I work in a gym.
Oh my God.
Lucky for me, my YouTube views went way up because everyone was at home. So the extra money from that ended up, thank God, compensating for the loss of my regular job.
And thank God that you already had a microphone, because they have been sold out on Amazon for months.
Yeah. But yeah, I've had friends that businesses are shut, and it's sad to see all this, everything that's happened economically. As you said, some are doing great, the government workers and so forth, but the little people, the small business owners
It
are really
breaks
being affected.
all of it breaks my heart. And really quick interjection, I have to ask, like, are you around like the Eric Youngs? Are you around the Bobby Roods? Are you around the Johnny Devines? Like, were they anywhere around you in Canada? I'm just thinking of all these Canadian crazy men that I know.
Johnny Devine is from Cal or trained
Yeah.
with me in Calgary, so
Okay.
I'm not anywhere around those people. I'm hours away from them all. But I
Do you
think out of
know
all of them, Johnny Devine, I'm the closest to of those three.
Johnny Devine? Tell him I said hi. Got some stories.
Oh, I'm sure. Did you know him when he got stabbed when he was wrestling in TNA?
No, what the hell happened? Johnny, come on, bro. What happened to him?
I think that was a situation where it was some road rage incident that exploded into him getting out of a car or something and getting in a. It was in Nashville.
Of
It was,
course.
yeah. So I won't tell the story because I don't know it. I just remember when he was in TNA, he got stabbed out of some road rage incident, and it was right when he was getting pushed with the Team Canada thing, and it kind of screwed over his push.
Ah, I'm gonna have to get him on my podcast to find that story out. All right, I'm driving too much. I will stop being an
I'm sure
alpha.
he's been affected by this though, because wasn't he running Scott Demore's trading school the last I heard about him?
Was he really? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, in Windsor, Canada. He
I
was
still,
operating.
the jury is just out on everything that is going on. Bro, I just can't wait to get back into the swing of things, and I can't wait for your ratings to just keep on going up.
Yeah, actually, I've been beating MLW, Ring of Honor, New Japan,
No.
and what's the other one? Uh, oh, NWA. Very
Okay.
easy to forget about these days
Oh,
because the
shut up.
product's crap.
Oh my
But
God. I've got friends in NWA. You shut up.
oh, I'm friends with Melina, and I'm happy that she's got a job there. But
Yes.
I've been disappointed with it overall, unfortunately.
You know, the lead in the video, the Muslim woman, is Mayra Diaz Gomez, and she's in NWA. So, just so you know,
Well, you can't blame the
no, you
wrestlers
can't
for
blame
the
the talent.
creative. You can't.
No.
But yeah, and speaking of the Muslim woman, what made you want to start it off with the Muslim woman slitting her wrists?
You know, we didn't have a Muslim woman from the get-go. It was just a very dear friend of mine with a very, very famous father was going to play that role, and they just backed out at the last minute. And I was like, I had a dream, and I was like, if you're going to really make this like edgy as all F, then there are a lot of Muslim women all over the world, but especially in the US. Once they come here, they start to acclimate to our climate. And not every chick is, like I said, some alpha beast like I am. And they start wanting that. And then let's just be graphic. You know, they turn 12 or 13 and they get their clitorises cut off, basically, with no anesthetics. And it's like, what a fun party that one is to look forward to. How do I know this? Because I do motivational speaking in schools, and I did a ton in Minneapolis, Minnesota for years, where there's a huge Muslim community and population there. The name of the tour that I did was Today I Won't Be Afraid. We sang the song, which is done real well, made a lot of money for different platforms. I talked to the kids about what your fears are, usually when you're acting out, usually when you're using drugs in grade school or you're doing other things that are not good or healthy for you. There's some bullshit happening, and we try to like figure that out. And then here are these beautiful little girls coming up to me, pulling on the back of my shirt saying Goldilocks, Goldilocks. And they bring me off into a corner and they basically tell me they're going to get mutilated on their big party. And I'm just like, there's nothing that you can say because it's not church and state separate. You can't say shit. And like the teachers are like, our hands are tied. And that was years ago. I can't even imagine what it is like now. God forbid you even look at people wrong. And I just was like, now there's all these women, especially here, that are Muslim that are just killing themselves because it sucks. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, there's a reason they circumcise little boys at birth because you're a little baby and hopefully there's anesthetics and a great doctor involved and you're not going to remember it. When you're 12, 13 years old or whatever age they do that to these girls at, That's the most whack, so that they don't experience sexual pleasure. You pieces of shit. And I wanted them to be highlighted. I wanted people to talk about that. I don't think people talk about this. How many people have you had on your podcast, Hannibal, that are talking about female clitorises being, circumcised?
Never, none.
Zero. We're going to go with zero. And that's something to think of the next time you look at somebody with their garb on, the hijab, and you hate on them or you pass judgment. Like, they might be bleeding today. So just back up a little bit. So that's
Actually, the Honky Tonk Man talked about it.
You're kidding.
Yes, I am.
Okay, you asshole.
But speaking of all that, what do you think about WWE's relationship with Saudi Arabia? And they treat women absolutely horribly there, and the human rights values are way off. And WWE's actually promoting the country and doing business with them. What's your opinion on that and how women are treated over there?
I can't really comment for WWE because I'm not, the minute that I have an opinion on, let me tell you, the minute that I have an opinion on something and then something like the COVID hits where we're all just scrambling and we're trying to figure out like, oh my God, at the end of the day, how do I feed my family? Or how do I, not that Vince McMahon can't feed his freaking family. He's doing fine, no matter what his ratings are, excuse me. I'm not there and I don't know like why people do deals with why our government does deals with this or that. I can't answer for that, but I would hope that if you're going to enter into a relationship with something that is obvious that it's not healthy and it's not good and women or anybody aren't being promoted, that you do something somewhat good with it or create awareness with it. Like sometimes I align myself with some sketchy people, but at the end of the day, like I hope that I'm rubbing off on them, maybe showing them that I lead a freaking pretty awesome, honest lifestyle. And I would hope that by example, if I was ever going to be a Christian or set a good example, it isn't going to be because of I'm going to verbally tell you about something or hit you over the head with my Bible or whatever. It's going to be by my actions. And I would hope if Vince or the WWE is going to do something with that I don't know, maybe it's just stupid and wishful thinking that there's some angle or something that just shows something. I'll give you a really great example, something that's going around on social media. And it's funny how he has to be dead. You always have to wait till somebody dies to react or to give a shit in general. But there are black and white pictures of like the very first Mr. Rogers show where it's him and the mailman, Mr. Clemens, and basically if you go back years ago when Mr. Rogers just says, "Oh, come on in, mailman McFeely," or whatever the guy's name. Oh no, it was a cop. Come in and cool your feet off. And they show him like with both of their feet in the kiddie pool in the backyard. And then fast forward now, what you see on social media is the end of the run of Mr. Rogers where they're both, older and they recreate that same scene. It's like, he's not really saying anything verbally, but holy balls, like that mental picture of what he was trying to do with his show and agenda and love. That's not what the WWE is about. But is there something that they could do to nod to fix something or to mend it? I don't know. Their story angles and shows and episodes are very powerful things. What are we doing with that? That's my only thing I'll say on that. Great question. No one's asked that.
They did have the two women wrestle there on the show, but they were all covered up. And it's not like
weird?
the girls there could even do that because of the restrictions, but it was a bizarre match. I think it was Natalia and possibly Lacey Evans.
What's the point?
Yeah. I don't know.
Great question, though.
It was sad to see that they actually conformed to Saudi Arabia and made the girls cover up for the match. But anyways, you've opened for a lot of famous bands.
Yeah.
I'll ask you about a lot of them if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Some of them I like. What was it like working with Pink, opening for her?
She she was there. She was doing her thing, no different than when you're back in the locker room and, boys are doing their thing and they're running their matches. And I look back at some of the most amazing, famous workers, wrestlers that I had the privilege of being there that night with. And sometimes I got to talk to them, maybe afterwards. But for the most part, like, she was just on her game. I remember some of her very first shows. I remember being out, what was it, Kid Rock or Metallica? I don't know why she was opening. It was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and her street team was out there. And you just got this card. It was white. It was a white 4x6 promo, and it just said PINK. That's it. There was nothing on the back, no website, no URL, nothing. And I was like, what is this? And then right before they opened doors at the Mega Center, the stadium, there was a big plane with a sign that just said Pink is coming. And that was my first introduction to her. And then here we are, and we're opening for her in front of thousands and thousands of people on Staten Island. And she was lovely. She was cool. And fast forward to all these years later, she is still one of the coolest chicks in entertainment. Kind, badass. So is Lizzie Hailstorm from Hailstorm. Britney Spears is undeniably the nicest person in this business as far as giving a crap about who you are. So three ladies that are on top of their game right there.
I did security at a Pink concert once, and it was an outdoor show, complete thunderstorm with lightning, and she just continued as if nothing was happening. That
Of
was
course, because people spent their money on it. That's a Prince move too. If you ever watched the Prince Super Bowl, he just was like waiting for it to rain more. So bad.
Did you ever meet him, being from Minnesota?
So I don't go into this into detail, but like that's where my record deal was, and I was signed to like all his people, and he helped me out. So yeah, I did meet it more than meet him, Hannibal. He's been he was quietly somebody that mentored me for a while, and Minneapolis is a real small, tight-knit community, and you just have to be careful with your politics. And if you're signed to one camp, you don't mix with another. But I lived across the street from him and worked 2 doors down. So, we eventually bumped into each other and did some really cool stuff together. And some of that stuff I'll take with me to the grave, just because timelines would get really muddy. Like sometimes I was doing some things that I shouldn't have, but yeah. I did more than meet him.
What was his eventual cause of death? Because he unfortunately died very young.
I'm pretty sure it was a drug overdose. He said that he didn't use, but he did. So, and a lot of people know that. And I can't remember if it was Dave Grohl that cut a promo on him. It might have been Dave or somebody else that was just real pissed when he died, because it could have been, it didn't need to happen. What a talented dude. Weird, but talented.
I saw him a couple of years before he passed away, and I'm thankful that I went to that concert. But one of my favorite movies is still Purple Rain, because it explains the 80s so well.
It does. And I mean, people know him as talented, but like the stuff that he did in the studio and his protege, I was knee deep embedded in everybody in the Minneapolis scene, like not like sexually, but like just I was a little kid running around. And I got my introduction to the music business digging through Paisley Park's garbage can, like ditching the cameras so that if he didn't like an outfit, I knew the seamstresses that he used. He would dump. You want to talk about some fabric, like for gimmicks, like we're talking stuff from like Italy, France, like bolts of fabric. And once I caught wind of that, I was scaling that like a spiked high gates, scaling it at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, barbed wire and some of the stuff in the back. I think I put a rug over the barbed wire and then gimmicked it with a bungee cord so that I could get over it. And then, they caught on to me and stuff like that. But my in with all of the people, Paisley, Minneapolis, all the different studios was, all right, you caught me, I'm stealing. Why don't you give me a chance to sew for you? I can sew. I'm young, but I know how to sew and I can make gimmicks. And that's how I got my in, was making gimmicks for all of the boy bands and the girl bands and the artists and all of the Prince proteges and all of this stuff. I was young, but I could sew like a mother trucker. Fast forward to TNA and some WWE and other, I mean, I did a lot of, I don't think people even know that. Like I did a lot of their gimmicks, and I sang the ring walks and the entrance music and a lot of stuff. Like you don't know a lot of things behind the scenes, but James Storm, Chris Harris, Christopher Daniels, the Naturals, like all these guys and girls, I made all the stuff for them. And that's where I got my start, was sewing for all of Prince's acts that he signed.
Wow.
Crazy.
And Three Doors Down, you mentioned that you're working with the lead singer in the suicide prevention thing, but I'm a fan of a bunch of their songs. What's it like opening for them?
Totally cool. Those were different days back then when we started. Like that was right when I was with TNA Impact, and I was getting booked all the time because I was on that show, and then they would hire the band, and we just showed up, and it was Three Doors Down, Nickelback, and Puddle of Mudd. Three Doors Down were super cool, but everybody's just partying and doing their things. Fast forward all these years later, I did a song with Chris Henderson maybe 5-6 years ago, and met him and got to be friends with him and his now wife. And, now he's sober and very healthy lifestyle. He's been training me with macros and different, he's just been my coach for a while. And then I just said, hey, will you do this video? And he said, yes, and it just goes to show you got to be cool to people forever, because that was 2002 when we first initially opened for them, and then we're on the circuit. We've opened for tons of people. If you show up and you're not up, you're like pro, chances are that you'll be asked back.
Now, Rick Springfield, you also opened for them, as my dog just opened the door. She wanted to say hi.
I was, oh, look at you, sexy girl. Oh my God. Is she an old pup or is she young?
She's 8 years old.
She looks like she's been around the block a few times. Oh, she's so cute.
She still acts like a baby though.
And that's good. Rick Springfield is boy, what can I say there, Hannibal? There's not much I can say.
And what about Ted Nugent? He's a classic guy from the metal scene.
Ted Nugent, we not only opened for him a ton, but then I went on to be on his show on CMT. So spent some time with Ted Nugent in Waco, Texas at his ranch, and that was a really brutal experience. I got the call to come do the show, and I let the casting people know, like, I have pneumonia, like bad. I was in the hospital. I think if I came, like, it wouldn't be a very good competition. Like, I can barely breathe, let alone run and be hunted. And they said, well, we've based the whole show around you and your band. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So they're like, just come. And I'm like, I can barely breathe. Anyway, got on a plane, went out to Waco, Texas, ended up running from Ted Nugent, the name of the show, falling down a pit, having his dogs chase me, broke 2 ribs, no joke. And then I am literally hanging out, and the only food that we got were maggots. And that's so anyway, here's the story. No, here's the story with this. This is the most, I'm sick with pneumonia. Now I have 2 right before I had broken ribs. But the pneumonia, this was the most boring episode. All the people were just green jabronis, totally annoying. They weren't listening to directions. They were just people from the street. Like, just saying, not that there's anything wrong with normal people, but you don't do so well in production environments. If they say, don't talk to the other contestants, don't ask where they're from, ask nothing. And then, oh, by the way, I'm like, dude, did you not just listen? He just told you to shut up. Like, we're not supposed to be talking. We're competing against you. Okay, so then do you have kids? And I'm like, okay, what part about don't you just shut? So anyway, I was ready to just beat the crap out of some of these people. One girl I started to be friends with, I think before we even got to Waco, Texas, we were at a hotel. We went to go get something to eat, and somebody tried to rape both of us. So now we've got a good bond. I beat the shit out of them. They weren't ready for that. So anyway, we're at this show. It is the most boring thing that you've ever seen. And I told her the only place she could go was the bathroom, restrooms, no cameras. So I pulled her in. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, we're going to make out. We're going to go out there, and we're going to make. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, look, this isn't going to air. Because you couldn't get us arrested. This is so boring. I said, I'm going to show you how to do a chokehold. What are you doing? I'm like, just here. And I took her arm and I put it around my neck, and I started to choke myself out. And then I took 3 pulses, and I'm like, if I pulse you 3 times, you're choking. That's your code, your key. You're done. Like, cut me off. I said, we're going to go out. We're going to get in a fight. She's like, for what? I'm like, I don't know. Just follow my lead or it's never going to work. So we had that in the back pocket, right? Here we are. We're at this fire and they're supposed to be engaging in conversation. And I lost my shit. And I was like, you guys are the most boring. This is so boring. Can we talk about this is so effing boring. And all of a sudden from like the campfire smoke, it parts. And like this beautiful silver-haired man walks through and he's like, she's right. It is boring. And I was like, Eric Bischoff?
What?
I didn't even know that it was Bischoff. Is it Harvey Heavy? Like it was their production. Hervey. I didn't even know. Like, and they're just dying because there's like 30 crew people. And I'm just like, this is so boring. I'm just like, oh, and the smoke passes and it's like Eric. And he was like, I was like, I'm not worthy. I was like, Mr. Bischoff, I've always wanted to be. And then all these people are like, who's Eric Bischoff? I'm like, you idiots. So anyway, the next scene was us eating maggots. And then it's Eric's son that was like running me around. Like he knew I was really sick and they were like taking care of me, but you can't know that on TV. The other contestants can't know that crew members are like slipping me Snickers under the table when I'm out in the wilderness dying from pneumonia. And then I got 2 broken ribs. So anyway, Eric was behind it all along. I didn't even know it. And I saw that you worked with him. So yeah. Crazy story. There you go. There's my Ted Nugent show experience. Ted Nugent. He was making comments about my labia on TV. Nice.
Strange.
Always a nice segue into the next scene is like something about my pink lips or something. And I was like, this is, yeah.
Now, Pat Benatar, I bet that was a different experience than Ted.
Very different, but man, she's an interesting duck too. Like they just, to each his own. Hannibal, just interessante. I think after you've been doing things as long as these people have, you just put stuff in your writer just to screw with people, just to see if they'll do it.
And what was it that you did with Steve-O from Jackass?
What did I do with Steve-O from Jackass? Musical stuff, like when I was in LA, like constantly running music through their shows with the different producers that I was working with. So meet them maybe for a couple of seconds. There was a very famous recording studio in Hollywood, California called Cherokee Studios, where everybody, Rod Stewart's, all his records, it was just gold records. It's no longer there, but the debauchery that went on at Cherokee Studios was like, there was one very famous celebrity who I swear was having butt sex with his dog. Like it was,
Oh boy.
It was just like, it was so rad. George, who's the guy that Prince hung out with the dreadlocks? George Clinton. It was always like totally high on crack. And one time he was walking around like completely nude during like I remember the owners were having a meeting or something with a real estate agent, and like here comes George Clinton like completely buck ass nude, like just cracked out of his mind. They had a really big fat rat that was like, that thing must have been 15 pounds. Like it was just this terrifying where they tried to kill this rat, Hannibal, for like 10 years. And then one day out of all of the exterminators, they found that rat belly up in Studio C next to George Clinton's crack pipe. That finally he got into the crack pipe. Done. Exit.
Wow. Who's the worst partier you've seen out of all these rock stars you've worked with and wrestlers? We'll put them into the same category.
Oh, I can't say. Okay, so I won't say his name out loud, but like as far as wrestling, like I don't even know if he was messed up, but like just the underage chicks, bro. I was just like the shit that I witnessed.
Really?
Dude, I was like, come on, man.
Why is Nashville and Tennessee known for that? Because I've seen only in Tennessee. It has that reputation.
Oh my God. Like I would come out after a pay-per-view and there'd be like some mom with like her 11, 12, 13-year-old daughter. Dude, I kid you not. And I'm like, what is this? And she was like, it's my child's 13th birthday or whatever. And she wants a little birthday sex. And they're like, okay, I can't get that out of my memory. Like there's some really gross guys in this business where I'm like, bro, could you just wait till she like at least turns 18 or no, you don't care. Like there is some things that I've seen in like hotel stairwells Like if Bukkake comes to mind, and like nobody ever messed with me because I think I had conducted myself with a little bit more class than like your average rat. But it's just like, I mean, the stuff that we see in this business, people don't. Let's see. As far as rock stars, who is just like, you can't really say names because
No,
you
because you're
know,
still in the business.
because I'm still in the business. But like, man, I've seen some shit. I'm so boring. Like,
What
and
about Brett Michaels from Poison? How was he with the
he's
ladies?
he's always not feeling well. He's got really bad diabetes. So I mean, God bless him for even like touring or whatever. But you know, with what I've seen in rock and roll and in wrestling, and then now like Twitter, it just seems like Twitter is just like the porn hub for like it's stuff that I mean, just give me a good old fashioned hard dick and I'm good to go. Some of this stuff that I see, I'm just like,
Oh God, yeah.
how bored are you? Or like, what kind of daddy issues do you have? Or like, does anybody just like to do it anymore? Like, just missionary style? Or do we have to be like dressed up
Yeah.
like weird characters to get off? Or like, do you have to beat me? Or I've got people like every month that will like, they want to see me being like snuffed out and they'll pay like, if I'm actually physically getting hurt or raped, like they'll pay me more money. I'm just like, no, like what's wrong with you? Like, do you not get laid ever, bro? Like, do you get nothing? Have you seen a vagina? Do you know what one is? It's terrifying. Terrifying.
How are the male groupies? I imagine that you have them in rock and roll, maybe not as much in wrestling, but
I would think the lesbians are more they're either really good or very aggressive. Most guys are terrified of me. That's why I'm single. I mean, I go back and forth. I see somebody once in a while, but like I just think I'm too alpha, I'm too terrifying. So so most of the guys are really respectful. Cuz I'll
that's
just
good.
shoot if they're not, everybody knows like that.
But yeah, New Jack, I just interviewed last week, and he was telling me he used to work for that XPW company that was owned by a porn producer, and he said they were doing like vomit porn and
Yes.
slapping women, and he said it was even too extreme for him, which is saying a lot.
I saw part of that interview. I didn't see that part, but
Yeah.
he's an
They would bring
interesting
the
guy.
wrestlers to watch it. So imagine the female, like, I guess they must just be so screwed up on drugs. They don't care, but imagine like a gang of wrestlers watching this stuff.
Dude, I mean, I talk to the people that are listening and watching this because I that we have a pretty healthy male population. Just listen to me. Can I? Because I'm starting a new Patreon. My band members are helping out. I'm going to be giving a lot of male advice. Let me tell you something. There is something to be said. If you want to get laid and you want your dick wet, there is something to be said about planning. Okay, wait, everybody sit down for this. Planning a nice dinner and some sort of pleasant evening for a woman, being nice to her, not too nice, not like, icky up your butt nice, but just planning something where you're taking charge and you've thought of something thoughtful. God forbid that you've listened to anything that we've said that we might like. Trust me, you meet a lady friend, you go do that, you will be riding off into the sunset as happy as they get. Like it's like I think we're so overloaded with so many things these days and tablets and phones and social media and instant this that we just forget like how to really woo the opposite sex, same sex, whatever you're into. Like it's not that hard if you just come back down to reality and actually listen. And honestly, with everything socially that's going on right now, I think if more people felt heard, just hear them. You don't need to agree with them. You don't need to be on the same side or religious or political, blah, blah, blah. Just hear somebody out and acknowledge, oh, I hear what you're saying. Same with the woman, same with the man. I think so many things would be resolved. I just do. Call me crazy, but guys are overthinking it. We're crazy bitches, but I don't want to be doing porn and vomit or a
No,
bunch of men jizzing on me. Like that's just not maybe I'm too square, but Like I said, just a good old fashioned hard dick and a nice dinner, and I'm there, bro.
Yeah. Nice to know you're not going to go down the path of the Sunny and Chinas of the world.
I feel God bless them though. You know, when people do that, like what happened to you in your childhood or your relationships, China, that because I see some of that stuff and I am not passing judgment if you're doing, but I mean, I just can't think she's feeling good about herself, like in green body paint, like dressed up like the Incredible Hulk, getting pounded up the ass. Like, is
Yeah.
that something that you want to tell like everybody at the grocery store? That is, here's what I tell the kids in the schools: if you can't look your family, friends, a stranger in the eye and say, "This is what I do with my time," and be proud of it, then it might not be for you.
Were you in TNA when CM Punk was in TNA?
Absolutely.
What did you think of him?
He was super cool to me. He was one of those guys that walked the walk, meaning I don't know if he did or not, but I didn't see him party a lot. And there was like a group of those guys. So look, here's what would happen after the pay-per-views. Everybody would go out and get, do what they do and be completely like incoherent at the airport gate. And just funny stories. Like that's where Johnny Devine comes in because there's a story that I could tell. It's so good with him. Or the other small minority, which was, I believe, CM Punk. I believe it was Christopher Daniels. I believe it was like Elix drove, unless we were in Orlando. Like those guys would stay up. They'd go to the parties. A lot of them wouldn't partake in the heavy stuff, and then they'd go to the gym. They'd go to the hotel gym. We'd already been checked out of the. Sometimes like we'd check out because we had a 5 o'clock flight. Like why spend the money on the hotel? So they'd stay out all night long and then get jacked up. But there was a group of those guys that were constantly training. They would show their face, they would do their diligence, good politics. And I studied that. And I'm pretty sure CM was in that group of just like, I'm going to keep my nose to the grindstone. And, for people listening, whether you want to be an aspiring wrestler or whatever your occupation is that you want to go into, or you want to start that small business, you want to start a big business, like, do your politics, but don't get in too deep where you end up like China and Sunny and where it's a fine line, but it's really not. Like you know the right thing to do.
Were you there when Punk had his famous fight with Ted Hart?
No, what happened? You worked with Ted Hart too.
I did, but yeah, no, I basically Ted beat him up, I guess, from all reports. It
Why?
happened. I don't know what the deal was. I guess they'd been talking trash about each other, and then it happened at one of the before one of the tapings, and it was broken up. But Ted, I guess, got the better of him. But
Ooh.
maybe it was when you weren't around.
No, I wasn't. I wish half of my podcast right now is redemption for what a freaking idiot that I was during my whole wrestling run. I didn't appreciate, I didn't understand, I didn't know anything. I should have just stopped worrying about what was going on in Beverly Hills, Hannibal, and I should have been getting to know a lot of people better. And I should have been working on my personal brand, which I did totally eluded me to do. Can you imagine 18 years ago? Like, I don't know how hard you've been hitting your podcast and your brand and whatever, but can you imagine if 18 years ago you have been going as hard?
Oh God, yeah.
Maybe you were. I don't know. I wasn't, and I
I
regret
only
it.
discovered this 5 years ago. I thought it was far too complicated to do prior to that.
Yeah.
So yes, I wish I had been doing it all along. It's a lot easier than wrestling.
Ah. So what do you say to? Because I want to cut this clip when it airs. I've got a new friend that I'm working with. He's in our band, and he's got a friend that just keeps saying how fake wrestling is, and how just like there was a clip on whatever Bill Maher's show. It was you know what I'm saying. He was
Yeah.
going out and he like literally pulled his pants down. It's on. I retweeted it and he like showed him a big bruise, and then he just went after him and he's like, "Why don't you go talk to Owen Hart and ask him how fake wrestling?" I was like, "Whoa, this guy's going. He's getting hot." But like, what do you say when people? Because I mean, I get really offended when people that are just trying to act like they're complete marks that are like, "Oh, everything is just fake." I'm like, "Oh my God, you freaking idiot."
I can't defend it anymore with the stuff that's on TV now. A lot of it is very fake
What
looking.
about you though? What are your injuries? What you've had a lot of stuff happen to you.
I have for sure, but I'm more offended that the wrestlers act like it's fake these days and break kayfabe so
Dude,
much.
you know who you sound like? Ben Hameen. Ben Hameen just goes on these rants about just how bad breaking the kayfabe is. All just even like on like their gimmick to social media to boohoo, just like
Yeah.
come on, you got a responsibility, you've got a role, you've got something that's been given to you, honor it and or just don't say anything at all.
And they're doing these social distancing matches now and people taking moves from dicks. So I can't argue with somebody that it's real when they can go online and see Ken Shamrock get beat up by Joey Ryan's dick. So I can't defend it
What?
anymore. I'm serious. This is
Yeah,
happening. This
bro,
is actually happening.
I don't even want to see.
I don't watch it. A lot, very few people are watching it. I brought up the other day, people like to bash Vince Russo, but when he was booking TNA, they got a 1.3 rating. The last viewership number that was released from TNA was like under 3,000. I don't know exactly what they're getting now. That number was from October, but
Yeah.
like hardly anyone's watching it. So,
Vince was always good to me. Vince gave me a huge push. I had a Twitter meltdown last week where I was literally crying because I was going through old TNA clips that Ben Hameen, I'm working with Ben Hameen and his media company. So they've been helping clip like some of the old stuff. I have tapes, but it's like they're all mangled or I can't find the right matches and things that I did. But I was going back and like realizing like all the stuff that Vince and I did together. And dude, I have forgotten everything. And I'm like, it was rub after push after push. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know it or appreciate it. I don't even remember this shit. And like, I got online and I did a little promo and I was just like, I am so sorry, Vince. Like, thank you for everything. And then there's like people like Big Vito that, I don't even know this guy. And like, I don't know how Twitter works, but apparently, like, he retweets my stuff and puts me over. And it, like, oh, I just discovered it last week. I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, I was like, Big Vito, I don't know you, but bro, like, thank you. I mean, we're on the same network, the same team brand umbrella. And it's like, Goldie, pull your head out of your ass even more than you need to and realize like the people that have been good to you or are being good to you. I'm like, my head's in a cloud sometimes. I don't see all the retweets and the this and the that. And I guess there's different places you can go look for that. Be proactive, you asshole, and go look for the people that are putting you over and spend more time thanking people. If you're on the toilet taking a dump or, like dropping a double deuce, whatever you guys do, we all do it. Make sure you clean your phone after and don't even act like you don't bring your phone in with you on the toilet. But like take some time and like say, I'm going to thank 10 people. Or if you're standing in line at the grocery store, it's 6 feet apart now, clean your phone off. Thank 10 people. Make somebody's day. Be proactive into doing something to listen, like I said earlier, and help people and make a difference. Because it's that sort of shit that is going to keep, Postal Bob from going into a school and blowing everybody up. Like, said no one that goes and takes out a bunch of kids at a school. Like, they weren't having a good day. So why
correct.
weren't they having a good day? Like, what can you do? Personal responsibility as an individual. What can you do to change the vibe that's out there right now? Because it needs to be changed, bro.
It does. I can tell you've been working with Vince Russo because you're on like your fifth or sixth bro.
Well, Vince and I did it. We did Bucket Full of Chicken Necks for like a year and a half, which is a weekly show, and it was just like yes. But I mean, I am very dude like, and was like that for years. And then once it gets around Vince, it's really bad. And then I talked to his kid, Willie. And have you ever seen Will do his dad? Like he will
I have
mimic.
not.
Oh my
I only
God,
I
dude.
actually just realized that he had a kid from your Twitter yesterday. I think you shared something of those two.
Yes. Go to Will's and look for when Will does like, when people do those master classes, like you'll
Yes.
just see a master class for this or that or whatever. Like he's got the Vince Russo master class that he does, and he's like, bro, you got to check this out. And Vince was the one that called me up right when the COVID hit and everything was getting canceled, and he was like, yo, bro, I got to talk to you. And I'm like, what, Vince? He's like, yo, bro, you gotta do this Patreon gimmick, man, bro. And I was like, Patreon what? Like, I've heard about it, but like, Vince, I don't know what to do. Bro, what are you talking about? You can give love advice, to the fellas. You can talk about music. You can do musical gimmicks. Bro, you got to do. And he was and I was like, Vince, I don't know what to do. And he literally was on the phone for like 2 hours with me, like, what about this? What about that? Like, he was really kind. I'll never forget the beginning of the COVID, the beginning of the end, like Vince Russo calling me up when he's never has time to call me up. He's always busy. I'll never forget 2002 when I was running around interviewing and I got a text message on my old little singular flip phone or whatever that my cat had died. They were trying to reach me during the pay-per-view to say your cat's going into seizures. Do you authorize us taking it to the emergency room? Well, I didn't authorize it, and the freaking cat was dead, and I was the cat killer. And I was devastated again on the floor, like girls do, and all of us. Oh Jesus, don't cry, And Vince was like literally down on his knees with his face in my lap, and then he's don't cry. We'll take you to Hooters. We'll get you some wings. And I was like, I don't want to go to Hooters. My cat's dead. And like all these big, huge men were like, Goldie, don't cry. But I'll never forget, Vince wanted to fix it with Hooters.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's so true.
And you worked with Eric Watts in TNA. We don't hear much about him these days, but he has a very famous father in the wrestling business. What was he like?
Eric Watts was one of the only people, Eric Watts, Elix Skipper, Jerry Lynn were the only people that ever tried to help me. Curt Hennig took me under his wing for a while, but he passed. Curt actually training me. I wanted to get into wrestling quietly, and then he died. But Eric Watts you could tell he was a great father, at least with temperament. With his children, he always would say, hey, I want to talk to you about something. So like, this is what you did and let's try this. It was never like you did a bad job or you suck or you're shitty or derogatory, degrading. It was always like, okay, I'm noticing this and like making me want to be better. You could this, and then this could be viewed as this could be misconstrued as this. And like where other people annihilated me, like, you stupid motherfucker. What did you just? And I'm like, nobody's told me anything. You guys threw me to the wolves with Jeremy Borash day one. Jeremy, I just picked up a little bit. Like, Jeremy Borash was so talented and I didn't realize why. Like, you could literally throw him out in front of anybody and he could just have these words come out that were words from wrestling. He's a wrestling guy. Like, he's been around it. I wasn't. I didn't know what a title tag team match thing. I didn't know what these words were. I didn't have any past psychology. I was totally thrown to the wolves half the time out in front of millions of people on pay-per-view. I didn't even know who I was interviewing. Oh, go out there. Like, and do what? Chris Rock's out there. Chris Rock? Like, Chris Rock, the movie star Chris Rock? Well, what am I talking about? Just go out there. And then it's like, I look like an idiot or a douchebag. And again, like you're talking about WWE right now, it's like, it's bad. It's not, or NWA, it's not necessarily the talent. It's just like the leadership isn't there. And I don't think the leadership wasn't there with TNA. I just think it was like, oh my God, we have this promotion and it's working. Holy shit, what do we do now? You know what I mean? And a lot of these guys and girls, they've been on indie shows, Hannibal, for years. You guys have a feeling for the climate and the culture. I didn't. Now I do. Now I can I do stuff in my sleep now, or at least I know I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to wing it like this. I'm going to pull from this, or but if you've never done anything, it's no different than these new artists that are coming up. And yeah, they might be on The Voice or they might be on American Idol, but they're cupping the mic. Like, I'm like, dude, lower your hands. They can't hear you. Or they're aiming the mic at like the PA and they're going to feed it back in front of like, nobody has told them, how to be a singer 101. Nobody told me how to be a backstage interviewer. They literally just like pushed me out there and let me learn the hard way.
And what about Abyss? You also did an angle with him. He's now in WWE.
Everybody knows that that's why I got fired. I mean, so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I didn't talk about it for years, but yeah. So, I mean, I get it.
I wrestled him before, by the way.
I'm in Puerto Rico, probably, right?
Actually, in TNA, when they came to Canada for their first tour, I wrestled them.
I got no heat. I don't have any heat with him. I've seen him since I got canned, but he started some shit that wasn't true. And I guess like people were mad at me because I'm not a
Yeah.
wrestler and I'm getting a ton of camera time because I'm now friends with Vince Russo because he and Dixie Carter think that I have talent on the mic and in acting, and some people like that and other people were just like, no, it needs to be just all wrestling, 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 wrestling. Who's this stupid bitch? Get her out of here. All right, I get it. I'm not happy about it. Maybe if I would have stayed in wrestling, I'd be a slutty whore now, or I'd be dead, or whatever. Everything happens for a reason. So I'm not mad about it. I don't like that when lies are being told about me, or that I'm gonna, that I was the office was told I was gonna sue if I had a bad bump. Okay, well, Jerry Jarrett has a book out, his autobiography. If you read it, I'm in it years ago, years before that, saying we had a terrible sexual harassment case that could have been the end of TNA, but Goldie kept her mouth shut. Okay, so if I have proof of outside people saying really bad stuff to me when I never gave my phone number out, or they found me complete solicitation, completely way lawsuit, making lots of money, but I was told by Jeff and Jerry, if you say anything, then we're done. And I'm like, here's all my new friends. I guess I'll keep my mouth shut, even though a lot of other people would have wanted that money because it was there. I had a shot, perfect case. So I let it go. So my point is if Jerry's writing about that publicly in a book and I didn't sue then, why wouldn't you come to me and say, did you say this? Because I didn't. Like, I'm on a hit television show, bro, and I'm doing really well. Why would I jeopardize that with, I'm going to sue you if I take a bad bump? That's not what was said. What was said was, Dear Terry Taylor, we are opening for Three Doors Down, Nickelback, Puddle of Mud at the Iowa State Fair next weekend. They want me to take a black hole slam from Abyss. I have a degenerative disc disease. I have some mornings that I wake up almost paralyzed with so much pain that I can't even bend over to brush my teeth. I don't think that's a good idea. May I please, dear sir, take a lesser bump, or could you help me figure out with what I just told you? I'm adulting here. Could you help me figure out a bump that somebody with no wrestling training could take and not be paralyzed? And that turns into, oh, Goldie's gonna sue the company. And I tell that story, I'll never forget it. David Sahadi was doing the promos, and they did all the promos and all the green screens and the nod and the turn, and it's going to have the graphics in the back. And I just heard somebody say, what about Goldie? As I stood there, like second to the last person, everybody else left. And I just remember David Zahadi going like, and I was like, oh shit, I'm done. And I think it was James Storm who had the balls to come to me and said, Goldie, they're going to let you go. And I'll never, I mean, here he's in the video now, all these years later. Like, how many years later was that? Like 16 years later, still somebody that I talked to in this business. But he quietly said, yeah, the rumor is you're going to sue. I'm like, what? Why? And I was done. There was no chance of coming back from that. Jeff Jarrett was like, Goldrin, got to let you go. And I was like, what? Like, I'm on this hit show. Like, you're going to just fire me? And that was it. That was the last time I saw anybody.
Well, TNA has never been known for making good business decisions. I actually heard Dave Meltzer say that he doesn't think Impact has ever had a year of profitability ever. So, whatever.
I wish I could go back now and be the greatest heel that wrestling ever had, because the reason I had my crying Twitter meltdown was I was watching some of the promos that I did, and I was like, now that I know about wrestling, I was like, no offense, bro, but I had to put myself over. I'm like, these were really good. Like some of the whack ass stuff that I did where like there was a whole angle where I had a split personality and I'd show up each week with like different gimmicks. And like excuse me, I have an itch my nose. Some of the people that worked backstage, like the color commentators, literally thought it was a new girl, and they would be like, oh, I'm like, dude, it's me, idiot. I didn't like you last week. I didn't want to suck your schwank the week before, and I don't want it this week. But they thought it was a different gimmick. Like, it was so interesting to see, like, even people at the promotion believed it was a different person. And some of the acting was really, really good. And I wish I would have known what I know now about like the wrestling, that I could have incorporated more of that and just been so evil that everybody just hated me. I would love to go back and redo that. I hope that I get a chance somewhere along the line to do that.
It's interesting that you bring up like the backstage in wrestling, how there's a lot of backstabbers and so forth. Because one of the reasons I can't defend wrestling anymore is because they have recently, like the WWE champion Drew McIntyre's come out and said, we're all like a family backstage, we're all friends, which doesn't make anyone want to watch wrestling. But the truth of the matter is, we're not all friends backstage. You can't trust hardly anybody.
Cutthroat. I will never forget one night, one of the guys, he had the tape and he put, dude, it was probably more than a 1/4 inch thick. I would say it wasn't a 1/2 inch, but it was between a 1/4 and a 1/2 inch, 4 inches. It was like some sort of bonding thing. He had that, he taped that in there, and he went after one of the guys to do a flying clothesline and take him out. He was going to kill him. He did go to the hospital. He did have a concussion. He was puking up black blood at Hooters. I'll never forget. I won't say who. It was bad.
Hooters was the big hangout, wasn't it?
Hooters was the freaking hangout. Another time I saw somebody doing, wrapping the blade for what I thought was getting color, but it wasn't. He had a lot of blades in there, and he was going to cut the shit out of somebody and slit their neck or wrist or whatever he could draw the most blood off and kill him. Like, there's
That's cheap. If you have a problem with someone, you should just ask them to go outside rather than that cheap stuff, in my opinion.
Well, there was plenty of that. Like, that's what I was just telling a friend of mine last night. We'd end up going out either to Hooters, and then after Hooters, we'd go to Tootsie's, which was downtown Nashville. Curt Hennig was always like, "Oh, you want to dance? You want to dance?" And I was like, "No, Curt, I don't want to dance." And he would like, "Okay, we're gonna do a little 2-step, little 3-step," and like he would grab my hands like here we go. Here we go. And I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen here? 1, 2, 3. And on the 3, he would have my hand like this. He would push it back. So whatever asshole was right behind him, my front of my wrist of my hand would knock them out. I would leave with bruises and blood vessels broken because Curt Hennig was on a tirade agenda to take out every douchebag that was at that bar. So it became a thing where we would do our little dance. Like, he was like, "I'm going to take her. It's no good." I'm like, "All right, you want to dance, Curt?" So we would do it. Eventually, he started turning my hand a little bit more. So at least it was this part that was hitting people. But man, those nights after the pay-per-views would end up with somebody's head on the floor somewhere on Broadway or 2nd Avenue of Nashville with a boot grinding their face into the pavement. Like, it was so bad. Those guys, some of the stories I have with Shane Douglas, I'm like, he won't even remember those stories, but oh my God, like, that's
well, I've had Shane on a bunch of times, so please share about Shane. He's popular on this channel.
Shane Douglas, like, I tell this story because it's so freaking good. Because it happened. That's the beauty of it. And he won't remember it because his pupils were the size of a stick pin. We were at the ale house after a pay-per-view, and it was funny because there was a certain black golfer who was also always at the ale. I'm like, when is this guy gonna get busted? Like, every time we see him, he's with another chick and he's got this hot blonde wife, and I'm like, Tiger, you're just right out there. And I'm just, God, the shit that went down at the ale house. Anyway, we would just pack the whole place and just run everybody else, all the families out, because it was late. We get over there like 11 o'clock, 11:30. They have like the old school, gimmicks, booths, like the old pizza parlor style gimmick. And all the booths were aligned like these big plate glass windows. That's just a recipe for disaster with a bunch of workers. Well, anyway, I'm sitting there and the guy's talking about what FAGGOTS wrestlers are. Oh, it's in there. And I was like, so I'm sitting with my crew having our steak and broccoli. And I turn and I'm like, bro, nah, this isn't the place. And he's like, spits at me, whatever. And I'm like, all right, suit yourself. Half an hour later, you hear this. I'm like, and I was like, bro, I'm just letting you know, like, this is not the climate to talk about people and that derogatory. It's not anywhere, but especially here. I think it was another half an hour goes by, and he's just using that F word, not the one you're thinking of. That's 4 letters. This one has more, over and over. And like, I swear to God, I don't know how many somas or what Shane had, or, God bless him. He was just out of his mind. And the next thing that you know, it's like, here's the franchise, like picking this guy up, and he lifted him up and pushed him through. I remember a plate glass window, and the cops came, and they took him away, and we were worried that he roughed him up somehow. That was so bad. But I just remember like looking over into the glass, like, bro, I told you, not a good idea. Like, but we were all worried like he was done. He wasn't coming back to TNA. And then he was off for a while. And then, but that night there was just so many stories like that. Another one where Kong, it was checking in. She was at something that I was at. Somebody was hitting on her boyfriend that worked at the desk. I just remember like the front desk person went over the desk. She just flipped him over. Like, just don't mess with those guys and girls. I wouldn't mess with you, But Shane, the franchise, he had enough of this talk. I don't think he was even cognizant. He might not even remember like how bad he annihilated this guy, but I laughed because I warned him. It's like, this isn't the place to say it. Yeah, I love people that like actually follow through. Even if you get taken off to jail, like at least you and then I'm trying to remember two people I won't say, but this is a great story and a great gimmick. Just shit going on in the parking lot, like just bad. Like people just like beating the crap out of somebody. And then here come the cops. Here's two tag team popular people. And like the partner leaves the guy for the cops. And I just remember, and I was like in the distance, like shit. And I just remember like, why would you just abandon your partner of all these years? Like it was terrible. And I was like, what do I do? And so the guy was like, officer was like, well, here comes the tag team partner, 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes with a hamburger. Don't know where he got it. Chewing his hamburger. He's like, officer, I just finished pay-per-view. I was making out with this chick. Never mind. We were doing our business. But yeah, I saw the whole thing. He didn't do anything. It was some other guy, and he ran that way. And I was like, oh my God. Like, if that isn't
that's awesome.
The perfect crime, like right there, like just have a hamburger nearby in your car so that you can be like, I'll never forget. I was like, so that's how they do it.
It makes a huge difference how you treat the cops. I remember one bar fight I got into that was completely my fault, but these guys were yelling at the cops rudely, and I was very polite, and they ended up getting arrested, and it was completely my fault. Just because I was polite. So that's a good lesson.
It's a good lesson.
The cops come, act calm.
Totally act calm and just say, leave and come back to the scene and say, I saw the whole thing and this guy didn't. I've just seen some really good stuff in our day. Yeah.
See, that's a worker. That's what we're missing in today's wrestling.
I mean, does it get more of a worker than that? Like some of the stuff that was just like, I got to hand it to you, brother. That's a good trick. And then some of the stuff that I could talk about, Johnny Devine, like, just, man, it's such good. Shh, don't say that around Goldie. He's always like trying to hush people up at the airport. Like he didn't quite want the true story to get out for me to hear it. It's okay.
Oh boy.
Johnny Devine.
I'll have to ask him about you next time I run into him.
Here's what I wonder if I can say this. Ask Johnny Devine about Sharky Moon Pie. That's all you need to say. She was the alehouse rat. Just ask him about Sharky Moon Pie. He will die.
The alehouse rat. That's hilarious.
It's really hilarious if you saw what she looked like. God bless her. Yeah, she was ready to go with anybody and everybody, and in any combination.
Oh boy. Well, a lot of people wanted me to ask you about this Extreme Cheapskates show you were on. I don't know if we got it up here in Canada, but I guess a lot of people saw your appearance when I announced I was going to be talking to you. People wanted to know.
Well, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, and I don't want to jinx anything, but if they were interested in that, then they probably will be interested in some things that are coming up. So I hope that people pay attention to me and to you, because there's some really badass stuff coming up that it's kind of continuing on with the Scream I am one of the cheapest bitches that are out there, and I even showed my bandmate that exact clip, some stuff from that show last night. And he was like, "You didn't really do that, did you?" And I was just like, "Because I did. I mean, I do some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, again, I'm sure there's a higher concentration of like dudes and bros watching this pod, but
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
We only
the
have
reason
10% female viewers on this channel.
well, the females can back me up that there's a reason that people say she's on the rag or I'm on the rag. Like, back in the day before there were tampons and sanitary pads,
Oh boy,
people
I don't know if I want to know
did
this.
what they needed to do. They did what they needed to do. And don't even tell me once, Hannibal, that during the COVID, that if somebody ran out of toilet paper, that they used what they had to. So I'll just leave it at that.
That whole toilet paper scare, by the way, was a work and was useless. Like, what's the point?
It wasn't a work. Like I didn't have any for a while. There wasn't any in Tennessee. Like it was
Oh,
crazy.
really? It wasn't that bad here where I am.
Oh, dude, no, no. There wasn't anything for months. Nothing.
Oh,
Nothing. There wasn't even food. You lost weight because you didn't work out. I lost some weight because there wasn't anything. The only thing that was ever left on our shelves was vegan options or anything healthy like the wheat pasta or the gluten-free something. Everything was gone. They acted like it was a zombie apocalypse here.
wow. Strangely, what's still gone here is the Clorox wipes that you can buy,
Yes.
which you probably don't buy because you're a cheapskate,
No,
and
I
frozen broccoli.
frozen broccoli.
I haven't been able to find it for months.
So get some fresh stuff. The cheapskates thing was like pretty much all of it was a shoot, except for how cheap I am paying my band. That was a
Okay.
work, but the rest of it was anything that people are asking about was a shoot. And don't knock it till you try it. And I really can't wait to. I'm gonna have to come back on your show when some other things develop, please. If people are anywhere interested in all that, because it's gonna be off the charts.
It sounds like you and Lanny Poffo would have been good friends with how cheap he is.
Is he cheap?
Yes,
I don't know, Lanny.
probably better off. If you
Well,
ever met him, he wouldn't stop hitting on you. He'll hit on any
oh,
female.
great. That's what I
He
need.
probably would have even hit on the ale rat
And
there.
Sharky Moon Pie.
Yeah, a
um,
few
Go ahead. Few what?
a few fans wanted to know about Taylor Wilde. Your relationship with Taylor Wilde. Did you work with her in TNA?
No, not at all.
Strange.
No,
Very strange. What
no,
about Madison Rain,
nope.
Gail Kim?
Gail Kim, I worked with. Gail was in a clique tight with her girls. So, I mean, even though we worked together, she just didn't say much to me. She wasn't mean to me. She just, she was pleasant. I always wished I was better friends, but she was friends with like Christy Hemme and um, there was some other girls. I won't say who they were. They were very vindictive and backstabbing and shitty. And honestly, I'm the worst person to be shitty to because I'm like an old elephant. Like I won't forget it, but at some point in time, I'm going to be useful to you because I'm not a hoe bag slut. Like I actually have a ton of talents and I know everybody. So you kind of shoot yourself in the foot when you're crappy to me because I won't go out of my way to talk smack about you, but I won't recommend you. And that's the worst thing that you can do for somebody because sooner or later, honey, when you grow up and your little titties sag and you're not as pretty as you think that you aren't even really, you're going to need some help. And people are going to ask my opinion on things because I actually do have some respect because I've actually led a decent life, not perfect, not an angel, made mistakes, but I've fixed and self-corrected. Sooner or later, somebody's going to ask Auntie Goldie's opinion on it, and I'm just going to let them know what a rat you are.
I agree. That's good advice. I do that as well for people that have screwed me over in the years with my Great North Wrestling Company. Now that I
Yeah.
do shoot interviews, I'll always remind people of what type of a person these people are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, for Terry Taylor, you briefly mentioned him. He's not the most well-liked person in the wrestling business. How was your relationship with him?
Well, I learned a little bit from him. We didn't work together that much. He was backstage. He chewed me out a cute few times. Um, Was he kind about it? Not really, but that's okay. He had a right to be angry for some of the stuff that I did. I can remember I didn't wave my hands big enough. I'll never forget being chewed out. Like, you didn't have, your reaction wasn't big enough for the people all the way in the back of the stadium. Like, and I was like, but nobody told me that. You know what I mean? Like, that would be something that I would, but again, he assumed that with the position that I had that I would know that, and I didn't. He was very hot at me about that, and I remember feeling pretty small after he yelled at me, but I don't hold that against anybody. I learned from it. And now I make sure, like, when I'm on stage and when we're singing the national anthem and when we get done and we're playing at a halftime show or something, that those actions are so big and powerful that we're doing in the mic. And like, I learned from getting my ass chewed. Another time, it might have been Vince that threw really angry with me because I said something about that they broke their leg or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, they didn't break their leg. They appeared to have broken their leg. Now we have to write it because you said, and I was like, oh shit. Like, I never realized the power and importance of a word like appeared, or, oh, by the way, or segue phrases, or again, Jeremy Borash being the absolute king of all of that. Like, it just rolled off of his tongue like butter. He knew how to say everything. I didn't. I learned the hard way. When I did go to Terry Taylor and say, I feel uncomfortable taking this Black Hole Slam with my back being the way that it is and with what's on the calendar, you know, did Terry say that I said that I was going to sue, or did Abyss start that? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's water under the bridge. But like, I would have hoped he would have said something to help me, because I went to him saying, I'm concerned. Would you help me? This is your role. You're that person in the office. So I don't know, but he was always very pleasant to me, except for the time I had it coming. He was cool. Really, really nobody was that mean to me in TNA. They were to some of the other girls, but then when you're sucking everybody's schlongs and sitting in everybody's laps, like, again, I wasn't an angel. I definitely made my mistakes, you know, in the locker room and did my share of things. I'm not claiming to be that, but I didn't go around like Gail Kim never did. Trinity never did. Kim Nielsen never did. Some of those girls, they just stayed to their own and did their business. And Gail Kim was always very, very, very professional, which I appreciate as another woman, because you can't sit there and claim all this Me Too stuff and then act like some, you know, it can't be like that. You can't have a double standard. Either stick to your guns and take it like a man, or you get what I'm saying.
Who was the greatest backstage politician that you witnessed in Impact?
Probably Jeremy Borash. He's still around. Like, he just played his cards right. I underestimate the politics. Like, I underestimate that, how good some people really, really were in anything. Like, just, again, right now, we didn't let somebody go. They kind of took themselves out of our group because their entire social media wall is just, I'm like, dude, I don't want to see all that. Well, it's my right to. You know what? I like dildos too. I like a good sex toy, but I'm not going to just post all the new rabbits and the new gimmicks on my wall. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to bring it with me into a restaurant as my comfort sex toy. That's my business. Like, it doesn't, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that just applies to so many things. Like, have your beliefs, have your religion, have your politics, but does everybody need to know it? And secondly, do you need to force your views on everybody? Or can you listen to theirs and say, oh, this person is a this and this? Okay, well, I got that. Maybe it's not a good idea that we sit at the table afterwards and shoot the shit. I'll be cordial, I'll be cool, but I'm going to go align with some people that are more like-minded to me, not judge these people, be cool, be kind, but just, it's cool. You know, there needs to be more of that.
Well, I try to be that way as much as possible. And for Dixie Carter, what is your opinion of her?
She came up to me and just was like, wow, you're a really good actress. And then they gave me more camera time, and then more and more and more camera time. I got to know her, and then boom, I was gone. So I didn't really get to spend too much time with Dixie. Every time I hear anybody talk about her, they just always say like she was like an ostrich, just head in the sand and didn't know what was going on. I don't know why she even wanted that promotion, but she did. And I don't know if she did a good job or a bad job. I just know what other people say. She was always lovely to me. I've been to her home this year. She was lovely.
Oh, you know her still? You still
I
keep in
still do.
contact with
I actually went to go talk about some other gimmicks that I had going on and who they know. And her and Serge invited me into their home. And they were lovely, just wonderful, good people.
Well, if I'm ever back in Nashville, I might have to get you to hook me up because she's one of my most requested interviews, and I have no idea how to.
She is so busy that even when I was at their house, I waited for probably 50 minutes for her to get off the phone during our meeting. So they've got a new company that's something to do with some hemp stuff and like beyond busy. If I ever run into her again, I will mention it, but like don't feel slighted or bad. Like I've never seen somebody that busy.
Yes.
Yeah. And I went over there. I'll plug really quickly. ICANCER, iCancer.life. iCancer.life is a really cool website and a new movement, inspirational products, but like a movement that us, the band, and I are doing. That's what I went over to her to say, like, who do you know on what hospital boards and whatever that we can get in here. And it's basically us not just playing for people that need it in cancer research and hospital centers, but making sure that these shirts, it says I can and the CER is cut out. Like we want to have them on every bed for every new patient, like so that they're constantly surrounded by positivity. And the last plug that I wanted to ask you before you wrap up and do your thing is if people could please go to the All To You video. It's All To You, and just look up Goldie, Goldy on YouTube. If you could just leave a simple hashtag just stay, that's our hashtag. Or, you know, I saw this, I heard it on the Hannibal podcast. Just those comments help the cause, us, the band, everything so much. That's like my big thing is just really, really want people to embrace that. And it's a great resource for people who are feeling down and they go see that video and then they start reading the comments and there's like really some great things in there. But I love it. Listen, I love it when people cross promote and leave on that guest book basically like where they heard about it, and it would be really good for you. So if you're listening this far, if you've made it past the dildos and the wrestling stories, if you could go to All To
And that
You.
you don't use tampons.
Don't use tampons. If you go to All To You Goldilocks on YouTube and just say where you heard about it on the Hannibal show, and it would be amazing.
And we'll, if you tell me exactly what you want for links, we'll throw them in the description too to make it easier
Done.
for
It's
the
super
people
easy.
watching.
I'll just tweet it to you in a minute.
On the cancer subject, one
Yes.
thing that really angered me here in Canada is during this lockdown, they stopped chemotherapy.
Yes.
They Cancer doctors would only do phone consultations. I had a little skin cancer thing, couldn't get it taken care of. I actually had to pay to get it done in a private clinic, even though we have free healthcare here. So I find it funny that COVID-19, which has a much less death rate than cancer, took precedent over cancer here.
That's just whack.
Yeah.
And you know, it's so many Americans just bitch about everything and they don't even know what it's like in Europe or in Canada. And they're like, well, they have free. And it's like, you just told me a different side of that story. You know, it's kind of like just be grateful for what you have and shut up. Like, everybody here is just such a little pissy bitch. They really are. That's why my friends live in other countries and other places because they're not pissy bitches.
Well, I actually wanted to move to the US until recently when I look at the reaction to just that incident that happened in Minnesota and the reaction of everything's now getting burned down, people are getting beat up, people are getting shot, and it's like maybe I don't want to live there.
Are you seeing that? Because people here are acting like that's not happening, and it is. Like that's what troubles me is like, oh, there's just peaceful protests. I'm like, no, I'll tweet you a picture of my neighborhood back home, and you can see how
Our view
peaceful.
of it here in Canada, overall, our view of it is this is a insane reaction of what's going on. We all agree that the action of that
Was
first
wrong.
cop was wrong. I understand there was actually history between
Yeah.
those two,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but all of these wrongs don't make it right, and I think there could have been better ways to
Well,
explain.
that's interesting that you say that, and if we weren't on the air, I'd have a whole lot more to say, but
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to plug?
no, what a wonderful interview. Like that's just so much of your time. I really appreciate it. And did anybody else write in any other questions that we can answer real quickly? Just fire them off.
There's a whole bunch, but as you said, you had other things to plug, so I
Do
won't
you
get
have
into them all. We ended up going way longer on my
okay.
questions.
All right.
Let me see if there's any really good
Fire.
ones.
Let's do really
The,
quick. Let's do 30-second skinny. Let's go.
the fans really wanted to know your tricks for your abs.
My tricks for the abs are the hanging leg raise. You get a bar. I will put it, if you go to my Twitter, I will tweet you all of the stuff on my Amazon URL. It will help me as well. But all that stuff is on my vanity URL, which is amazon.com/shop/Goldilocks Rocks, and go to workouts. That works. Hanging leg raise. It's a bar you put in your door. It doesn't hurt anything. And then the straps, and you go in there and you do the hanging leg raises to the left, to the right, and center. And if you can do a couple of hundred of those every day, and egg whites, and your abs are made in the kitchen, the old-fashioned grilled chicken breast, steamed broccoli with a little Mrs. Dash or a low-sodium gimmick on there. If you want to eat that a few times a day, and a protein shake, and do those, that's how you get those abs, honestly. And alcohol. If you're a big beer drinker, it's going to totally negate anything that you're doing in the kitchen or in the gym. Next.
Two more quick ones.
Do
Did
it.
WWE ever contact you?
I know, and I wish they would have, because like I said, I would love to go back and be the biggest heel ever, or tell some backstory of Abyss, or I would love to go get in the best, sickest shape of my life. I still actually look good, even though I'm not 20 anymore. I'm in pretty good shape, and I'm getting in more and more shape because of that opportunity that I told you I'd love to come back on and talk to you about. Give me another question. Come on.
So you're not retired then?
Hell
That's another
no.
question.
No.
And have you ever? A lot of people ask this. Have you ever posed nude?
No, that's not my thing. It's just I wasn't raised that way. I'm pretty old-fashioned with I think that should be reserved for like somebody that you're with. I would pose nude. I wouldn't pose nude, but I would be in a nude movie if it was something like Schindler's List, or
Oh boy.
something that had a reason for you to be nude that would make an impact on society and leave a mark. I will do swimsuits. I will do fitness and all that till the day comes home. But as far as the nude thing, I don't feel the need to have people see me naked to validate me and say like, wow, you look good. If I don't look just as good to you in a swimsuit or lingerie or something that I'm wearing because I feel like doing it, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm pretty tight with my shit. So no, I haven't, but no disrespect to anybody else that does. That's their gimmick.
And finally, you said you'd be a great heel. Let's say you were wrestling Charlotte Flair. You had a match coming up in Nashville. Actually, one more question before this.
Yeah.
It was a good question from a fan. They wanted to know your thoughts on the Asylum in Nashville, and now that it's torn down, what's your favorite memory of work in that building?
I didn't even know it was torn down. Is it?
Apparently,
Why? Because of riots?
no. Apparently, they just tore it down last year.
I didn't even shit. I guess I was there last year and didn't even know that. To them, it was a magical place, and if they were here, awesome. And if they weren't, they should have been. I was in a really dark place back then, and in some bad relationships, bad deals, and my mind was clouded. And when I drive back now over there before they tore it down, I wish I could rewind. And I will say this to that supporter: whatever it is that you have nostalgia or love, like, soak it in, take pictures, enjoy it, because like he or she just said, it's no longer there. I wish I would have been more present at like a lot of the supporters that showed up, like spent their hard-earned money every week, and they came and they made that place a magic place. That place was magic because of, and I'm not a big word of the fans, I say supporters, just because it seems like the people that like us or me, like they go overboard with their love and generosity and whatever. So I like to take it up a little bit on that notch, but it was really magic because of the people that would come, and thank you to them. And thank you to the people that watched all that. Like, we wouldn't have had any of those ratings. Vince wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have a job if people didn't like the content and the product. Now, Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give us a taste of what a good heel you are. Say you're wrestling Charlotte Flair as a heel at the Asylum tonight, if it was still around. Give us a heel promo.
I would have to. I mean, I would go dark. I would go deep. I don't know what character I would be or what accent that I would have. Usually, when I cut promos on something that fierce, on somebody that wanna be legendary Charlotte, I would have to go back to what it was like growing up, being in your father's shadow. I would have to go to a place like that and dig really deep about, do you really deserve to even be at the asylum today? Do you really deserve to be here? Or is it just your father's name that deserves to be here? And what kind of a dad was he to you anyway? I mean, we all know the stories about Ric Flair. Yeah, people can say woo and that he is beloved and a legend, but what was it like when your dad wasn't around? Or what was it like when you heard the stories of how hard your dad? I mean, I would have to go, like, I would just get like nasty because
Yeah.
people would just hate you because she's beautiful and she's amazing. So you got to go to a place of like, I feel bad even doing it, but like, if you put me out there, bro, it would get bad. I mean, that's just what you have to do. Got to give him a little hug backstage and say, it's on, bitch.
And we also cover MMA on this channel. Are you at all an MMA fan?
I am, and I got a chance to interview on my podcast, Cool Hand Luke, and boy, that guy is on fire. And I look back at the promos even with Ken Shamrock, who he spit in my face. That was like one of my first interviews. Like, he literally told me to back off, bitch, and spit in my face. So that's my first taste of MMA. But I think, who are your people right now? Like, who are you looking at? Like, are the true stars of MMA right now?
They need to build new stars, I think, because the true stars are all having contract disputes, like John Jones and McGregor. GSP's retired too. This George Masvidal, who I don't think is a true star yet. He's
What
having.
makes a true star? How are they going to cultivate a true star? Is that up to management? Is that up to the promotion? Or is that up to the individual, or a combination of all three?
I think it's a combination of all, but I think it has to do with their personality outside the ring.
Really?
Like McGregor, he got over just like a wrestler gets over with his over the top personality, but he had the skills to back it up at one point.
Have you had John Arizi on your show?
Not yet, no.
Get him on your show and have him talk about the early days of Mankind and listen to some John Arizi interviews when he is it's some of the first, like, what's the name of his thing, something Matt stories, and they say, like, here is Mick Foley, a young Mick Foley, and they, like, he's got a lot of work to do. And honestly, when I heard Mick talking on the mic, like some of the first, I guess he honed his craft on their show years ago. Even when Mick Foley spoke for like the first time on air or just a few times after that, I I was like blown away by his mic skills. I was blown away by his hustle, just his whole gimmick, his character. I know it's changed throughout the years, but what I heard out of the gate was so raw and so pure that I can't help but agree with you and just think, like, I wonder what people can do on their own. Is that like something they do on social media, Hannibal? Is it something that they do are they in character in interviews? Like, how does somebody cultivate that? How does somebody like McGregor, like, how does he get like that?
Well, I think he has that personality to begin with. That makes a difference. Wrestlers used to have that personality too, but it's less and less these days.
Why do you think that is? You think it's just they're just so worried about looking cool online, or
Well, also, it seems like it's less popular, so there's less cool people getting into it, maybe. And in the old days, there was the territories, whereas now they hire like a lot of college kids straight out of college to be wrestlers or bodybuilders or football players. Whereas in the old days, you had the crazy wrestlers and you would pick like the top ones from every territory. So a
yeah?
lot of them had off the wall personalities where today a lot of them are just average people, I guess, in
You're just
that
kind of
show.
lucky what you get. David Young, I had on the podcast a week last week. I think this week it's current running, and he mentioned that his daughter Amber Young wrestled. I didn't know that, and then she's the other half of the Lethal Lovers, and I'm trying to remember her husband's name, Anthony, but he ended up jumping in the car where she was doing her interview on my podcast. Hasn't aired yet, but he seems like, I mean, he seems like a very good contender for some up and coming talent. I mean, he's been out for a while, but I was impressed by his personality and his demeanor and the advice that he was giving. You know, I asked for him to give a little bit of advice to upcoming workers and people getting into the business, and it wasn't stagnant. It wasn't like old news to him. He was very present, and he did a great job with his responses. Those are some people that you might want to have on, because David was just a scream to have on. So, and Alan Funk's promo, if you go to my Instagram, which is Goldilocks Rocks, look way down, like, I don't know, months ago. Alan Funk like just shot all over, to the point where I'm like, bro, do you want me to cut this out? He's like, no, I hate Buff Bagwell. I'm just like,
Right.
oh my God, like the stuff that he was
That's what
saying.
wrestling needs now is more shoot stuff
Oh, he shot
on the TV products. Yeah.
he shot him to death, and I was just like, I don't even know if I can put this out. This is so bad. So I just bleeped out everything that he said, but I left it in his entirety. So
Well, Bagwell apparently is getting beat up by his dog these days. I don't know
oh,
if you've seen the pictures.
no, I haven't. I'll go look at that. That's good
Well,
stuff.
I did an interview with Buff recently, and he had a black eye. He had sunglasses on. He said it was his dog. Then a couple weeks later, a video came out of a cameo that he did that looked like someone had basically slapped his face. It had a full black handprint on his face. And then he came out with a video saying, once again, it was his dog.
Yeah, well, his dog must have some pretty big paws.
Yeah, so whatever. Buff Bagwell is going through a rough time. I don't think I think Alan would be happy if he could know how Buff's doing these days.
All right, well, I won't perpetuate that, but it's been an absolute pleasure being on your show. You're a really intelligent guy.
Thank you, and it's been nice talking to you. You've mentioned your Twitter a bunch of times during this, but I don't think you've actually said your Twitter handle.
Goldilocks Rocks is my handle on pretty much everything. GoldylOcks I would love to have some new friends, and please let me know that you found out through the hand. What's the title of your technical show? I've seen
It's
different things.
called The Hannibal TV, and the
It's the
reason I
Hannibal
had to
TV.
put the in front because Hannibal TV is like some weird thing in Europe, and I couldn't get a
Sure.
trademark on it.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
But
We'll do the Hannibal TV then. I just want to make sure I was saying it
yeah,
right. Yeah, what a pleasure. And please go over to All To You and leave a comment on YouTube. That's what I really would love. I'm gonna DM you that right now.
excellent. The comments boost YouTube videos for any of you fans out there watching. They boost the recommendations of
They
YouTube
boost
videos.
they boost more people that need to see that video, that they're going to see it. I mean, at the end of the day, if I did want to just do something that benefited myself or the band, it would be like this glitzy tits and ass type of thing. But, you know, I'm playing somebody that's killing themselves jumping off of a bridge. So it's very important after we had all these, you know, rap, R&B. Well, Tupac Shakur's cousin is in that. BB
Was it
King's
real cocaine? Was it
no,
cocaine use?
no. In fact, he reenacted a very bad night. Bobby's been sober for a couple of years now, and that scene pushed him over the edge where he needed to
Yeah.
go talk to his sponsor, and I didn't want him to do that scene at all. And he was adamant about recreating an exact scene, and I just said no, dude. And he was like, no, I'm doing it. So no, it's not real cocaine. It was cut up vitamin E.
Okay.
So when you look at all the Hollywood backstage gimmicks, one of the things that they use to recreate cocaine is very, very fine chopped up vitamin E. And then we put a straw in the $100 bill, and you run a straw with a Q-tip with Vaseline, so that when somebody's going to snort the fake cocaine, they snort it up, but it gets caught in the straw, which is inside the $100 bill, in the residue of the Vaseline. That is how that gimmick works for anybody that has made it this far. But go leave a freaking comment. It helps so much.
The other trick is you could cut up speed and it's not going to be as bad for you.
Thank you, Hannah, for your wrestling take on everything.
Yes, well, nice talking to you. Have a great night. I'll
Nice
get this
talking
up in
to
the
you.
next few days.
Thank you so much for having me on, brother. You've just been amazing. I really appreciate you.